All right, it's easy to say right now housing is back and back with a vengeance. Of course, we just had a report out earlier this week that showed that overall housing prices jumped 11% in the year-over-year period. And furthermore, we're seeing a big comeback in units that are being rented out and for sale in metropolitan areas across the country. So it's easy to say now things are looking great. But what fascinates me about our next guest, Bess Freedman of Brown Harris Stevens Real Estate, the CEO there, is what she was saying a little more than a year ago in the midst of the virus gripping the country, that there was underlying dynamics that favored a pickup in activity. No matter how good or bad the market is, she was telling Multi-Housing magazine, Multi-Housing News, I should say, back then, there are people who have a need to sell, buy, or rent. There is a lot of uncertainty. The stock market is volatile, lending restrictions are rising, unemployment numbers are up, and there's a lot of confusion around stimulus. I think right now people are prioritizing health over anything else. But here's what caught my attention. I don't mean to blather on, but how prescient she was. Once there is a treatment and tests are readily available, the uncertainty factor will greatly diminish health and economic implications. She was right. She was one of the few saying that, and she joins us right now. Bess Freedman, thank you for coming. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Neil. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, you obviously saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and most assumed it was just oncoming traffic at the time. So you saw something here. So let me spin what you said then forward. Are we overdoing it now? What do you think?
Well, I think the first quarter showed us that people do believe in New York City. And, you know, I think the vaccine rollout has been incredibly helpful. So that's been great. But people are committing to the city like never before. And, you know, many people have written the obituary for New York City, but they've been wrong time and time again. But let's not mix things up. We do have some headwinds because we know we need new leadership in New York City. We have a mayor's race. We have a lot of city council seats that are up. We have a controller's race. So New Yorkers really need to get involved and make their voices known so that we have great leadership leading us into the future.
What difference would that leadership make, though, if there isn't as much demand for properties right now, because so many will still be either telecommunicating, or some of them telecommuting, or some of them not coming into the city and cities at all?
Well, people are coming into the city. And as we know, look, restaurants are at 50% right now, but they will get back to 100%. Broadway is temporarily closed down. As Fran Lebowitz said, you know, Broadway is not going to reopen in Scarsdale. It's going to reopen right here in New York City, and things will get back to life, and it will be busy and better, but it's going to be different. That's for sure. And I think the pandemic served as a bit of a catalyst for people to decide, do they want to reimagine their space? Do they want to move downtown? Do they want to change a little bit? And so I think, Neil, that we will get back to a city that has 60 million plus tourists a year, but it's going to take time. And it doesn't minimize the fact that a lot of people are still suffering for loss of jobs, you know, businesses, right. They've lost loved ones in this very challenging time. That's all very real, but it's still, this is New York City, and people believe in it big time.
9/11 proved that, to your point, about that they came back, they thought that it would be just a barren, avoided land, sort of a Chernobyl, and of course anything but after that. But having said that, there are some dynamics that have changed, and even in the corporate leasing space, right? I mean, so many companies that are not expanding or just quitting on contracts that were all but signed. And with so many of these companies apparently okay with a number of their workers staying at home, wouldn't that hurt the demand side of your equation? I know I keep pounding that negative there, but hasn't the macro environment changed in that respect? That this is not just a passing fad, that this could have some long-term sort of oomph to it?
It's a good point, Neil. And, you know, we don't want businesses to up and move to Florida. Some of them have. And so we're hoping that people will come back and stay. And part of that is also a tax challenge. You know, we don't want to have things like a pied-à-terre tax that really hurts our city.
Right.
So we want to repeal the cap on the SALT deduction. We want people to stay here, but it has to be affordable. And we don't want to demonize the wealthy. We want them to invest here. It helps all of us. So we have some work to do in that area.
The trend toward higher taxes, whatever's going on in New York locally, but even nationally, the push for higher taxes on the wealthy, on businesses, could that put a crimp in this turnaround you see?
It could, but I'm hoping because New York has gotten so much money from Washington that is enough. And now they legalized marijuana. That's supposed to bring in something like $350 million. There's plenty of money so that we don't need to bring taxes up. We've already paid our fair share. I mean, they need to stop coming to New York City or New York for taxes. I mean, I think it's just been overwhelming for all of us.
Very good point. And the good thing about legalizing pot, Bess, is that at the very least, it can help you just deal with what you're seeing with the higher taxes and everything else that come with that. But that's a separate segment for a separate show. Bess Freedman, very good seeing you. Brown Harris Stevens, real estate
Thank you, Neil.
CEO. Again, thank you. An uncanny read of things. But when you think of what she was saying a year ago in the height of this, she was very much ahead of her time.